Hi, everyone. My name is Cathy Stango. I'm a senior here, and I'm moderating for the law panel. First of all, thank you all for coming. Just a quick little note that these people have given up their time and put some effort into this, so please try to be respectful, and we can all have a good panel. So I'm going to start off by asking our panelists to just introduce themselves very quickly, give a little information about who they are, what they do, where they went to school, things like that. So we can start anywhere you want if you take the mic.
I'm Chuck Stango. She's mine. I am the prosecutor, one of the prosecutors at the Milford State's Attorney's Office, Milford, Connecticut.
Hi, I'm Sharon Elias. I'm the supervisor of the Juvenile Public Defender's Office for Waterbury, Danbury, and Torrington, which means I represent kids that are poor, that are 17 and under, that get arrested. So if any of you guys, not that you would, get arrested, you'll see me.
Yeah. Good morning. My name is Christina Forgione. I am a juvenile probation officer assigned to the Waterbury Judicial District.
Good morning. I'm Cathy Bauer, and I promised I would embarrass my daughter Anna Richardson just once this morning. I'm a practicing attorney here in Southbury. I'm the managing partner at the law firm of Gager, Emerson, Rickert, Bauer, and Scalzo.
And I'm Rick Richardson. I've two partners in Woodbury. We do primarily divorce law and injury law, but all litigation, all the fun stuff in court.
So I would, okay, down that way. So does anybody have any questions before we begin? Fantastic. Okay, so I'm just going to start by asking all our panelists just to ask them to give a typical overview of what a typical day at work is like for them. So anybody can start with you.
My day somewhat mirrors the court day. My office is in the courthouse in Milford. For the first 9 years, I was in Bridgeport Courthouse. In the last 9 years, I've been in the Milford Courthouse. Essentially, you get in the morning and you see what the docket has in store. The docket are the list of cases that are down on any given day, and you start to deal with the public. I am the supervisor of the GA court, which means we handle everything from minor motor vehicle offenses up to C felonies, drug offenses, some robbery offenses, etc. So we do the bulk of the casework in the jurisdiction, and there's 3 prosecutors that work under me, and a clerical assistant as well as an investigator. So you deal with about 150 members of the public each day. And we handle those cases most of the morning, and then starting in the afternoon I start preparing for the next day. So hopefully there are times when we get to do trials and get to do the fun stuff in court. Mr. Richardson indicated is fun, and that's what we're all in it for. And you try and do the right thing. Very few jobs have the sole job description of doing the right thing, and mine's one of them.
What I love about my job is that every single day is different. So some days I'm in court, some days I'm in the office, some days I stay at home and work. Some days are very stressful and require working till 11 o'clock at night, and some days are not. I think the diversity adds a lot to the job itself, the fact that every day is a little bit different. I work in a law office where there are 5 other attorneys, and everybody practices in a different area. I like that as well because I have the support to be able to ask others questions in their particular area. What I do is, because I do civil litigation, I end up in depositions or in court on civil matters involving people that have been injured, or I represent some institutional clients like Bed Bath & Beyond and Christmas tree shops, so people that I defend those stores in claims that have been brought against them. So it's basically every day is different.
I agree. I kind of chuckled when I saw that the first question was, what's your typical day like? Because there's really nothing typical in, probably in what we all do. You make your plans, you have certain things you want to get done, and then the emergencies crop up. Take today for an example. As primarily a divorce lawyer, I've got my list of things to do. These are the 10 things I want to accomplish today before I can get in the car, come on home, and get ready for the turkey tomorrow. Well, I can't tell you. I know this will happen, but I don't know how many of my clients will, at some point today, realize, oh, tomorrow's Thanksgiving. Do I have the kids or does she have the kids? What time do I pick them up? I want them. She wants them. I get that all the time. And so one of the things that I didn't plan for today, but I know I will have to put in the schedule, is who gets the kids when on Thanksgiving, who's getting to be there for the turkey, who's getting to be there for the pies. So it's one of the fun things about the job is every day is different. And I kind of chuckle when I have my to-do list because you always just have to deal with the emergencies. So it makes every day challenging and interesting.
Wait, so would you say that there's a level of stress to your job?
Yes.
like abnormally high level of stress?
Yeah, I mean, certainly if any of you if you're going to go into the law, like most professions, you need to deal with the level of stress that's called upon by that particular type of practice. There are lots of different grades of stress in legal jobs. So for instance, if you are someone who likes to say, I'm going to get things done in a certain way, I don't like to deviate from that, and there's nothing wrong with that, then you're going to become a real estate lawyer, and you're going to do a closing. And you can have a closing at 2, you have another one at 4, and the next day you're going to have one at 11, and another at 2:30. And I wouldn't be saying this if we had any real estate lawyers up there. I'd say it a little differently. Or if you want to, let's see, who do we have? Yeah, if you want to do a will, if somebody coming in at 8:30 to sign a will, and someone coming in at noon to sign another will. So there are certainly legal jobs, and I don't mean to, again, it's probably really totally unfair of me to say it like that. But if you don't like to deal with a lot of stress, then certainly there are careers in the law that are designed for that. But I think what we all do is stuff where you need to be ready for thinking on your feet, quick changes, and being really used to the stresses that come, the stresses that are the downside of the good side, which is the excitement and the you never know quality that goes into each of our jobs.
Thank you.
I'm sorry about the table.
I know. I can talk loud enough, but I won't. So again, I mentioned what I did was represent kids. My job is, so if you get charged with a robbery, if Attorney Stango was in juvenile court, he and I would be going up against each other in the courtroom. But my job really, as I see it, is I represent people's constitutional rights. So if you get arrested, the police have to do things correctly. The prosecutor, the judge has to do things correctly. And I make sure people's constitutional rights are not violated, whether they're guilty of a crime or not, because everybody has those rights. Another piece we do in juvenile court, more than I did when I worked in adult court, was we see why the child's getting arrested. Is it mental health? Is it drugs? Is there dysfunction at home? And we also help them with that problem. So as far as a typical day, as was said, it's not typical. You can have a kid come in crisis, wanting to hurt themselves. We have to have kids hospitalized. Some kids go to detention. Some kids would rather go to detention than go home. So there's a lot more, I think, stress for me going on in juvenile court than in adult court when I worked there, because we try to help the whole child.
As a juvenile probation officer, there is not a typical day. You can't even begin to try to say you're going to have a typical day. I do have a list of things to do. Rarely does that ever get my top priority. Juvenile court is so different from the adult court in the sense that we could have parents just showing up saying, I don't want them anymore, take them, I'm done. Attorney Elias and I work very close together with these cases. We have a lot of kids that are coming to us at their most damaging state, and our job is to try to fix them. So we focus a lot on the rehabilitation part of the court process. As a juvenile probation officer, we're out in the schools, we're out in the community. I'm assigned to Waterbury. There's 17 of us, and we cover all the way from Cheshire Prospect down the valley up through around this area. So there are actually 2 probation officers that are assigned to this area. We're out in the field, we're doing home visits, we could have families called in crisis, we transport kids to and from detention, so we could have multiple transports every day to Bridgeport, but that couldn't be on our list of things to do for that day, but we have to kind of fill in and help each other out with regards to that. So I also chuckled when I first saw that, because there is not a typical day under no way, shape, or form.
Before I'm just passing the mic back and forth, it's just maybe we could just go down the line and then go back, just so we don't have to keep passing the microphone back and forth. Anyway, well, what would you say is like the most rewarding part of your job?
Selfishly, we are afforded hazardous duty, which means when I got hired after 20 years, you're eligible for retirement. So I've been a PO for 21 years, so technically right now, at age 44, I could retire and start all over. It's now changed where it's 25 years, so the hazardous duty is obviously a huge perk. When I look at it on my social work side, because I do have my bachelor's and master's in social work, even though we're considered the criminal aspect as a probation officer, for most of these kids, we are probably one of the most stable people that they have in their lives. For that period of time, we are that support system that they may or may not be getting at home. Like I said before, a big part of what juvenile court does is rehabilitation. So social work is a key component to what we do, as well as the criminal justice. That's what I would say is the most rewarding. Or when kids who are now, I know it's time to retire because now I have some of my kids on my caseload, but when they come back and say, you know, I want you, or I was just downtown and I came to say hi, you know, somehow at some point in time you made some impact on their lives, because normally they wouldn't come down to a courthouse, go through the metal detector, come find you just to pop in and say hello. So you know that you did something. You know, you may have not fixed everything, but during that period of time that you were involved in their lives, you know, you did something.
So I've been practicing law for 27 years. I think I went to law school with somebody at the end of the table here, so I won't tell you how long he's been practicing. But my biggest reward is when a client comes back and they're a grown-up and life is good for them, and maybe I said something or something happened that made things better for them. You never know when it's going to happen. You never know who's going to come back and who's going to be successful and who's not going to be successful. But that reminds me all the times I get beaten down, why I keep on doing it. But unlike Ms. Forgione, I don't have hazardous duties. I'll be working for another 20 years probably.
The most rewarding part for me is dealing with folks. When I was in the Part A, which is mostly trial work, A and B felonies, murders, rapes, robberies, etc., you're dealing with the victims of crime, and you want to make it right for them. You're advocating for justice. It's usually a trial, and it's rewarding to have a good result. And I think that everyone on the panel could define good result in their own practices differently, but we're all kind of aiming for a good result. Now that I'm handling the cases that are less time-consuming, there's more individuals, but it's reversed a little bit. I get people in the line every day that can be any one of us in this room who had a bad day at any given point. They may not be career criminals. They may not be individuals who may offend ever again, but that particular moment in time they were arrested and charged with a crime and are going to be facing a judge in court. And I think it's important for me to be cognizant of that, and doing what's right for that person, as the prosecutor may be more difficult in some ways than trying the individual who's accused of doing something very heinous. Like I said, my job is to do the right thing, and that's what I try to do every day, and it's rewarding just about every day. And as far as retirement goes, I have one person over here, another one right behind her, so going to college, so I'll probably never be retiring.
Thanks. have to say that because litigation requires a winner and a loser a lot of times, I love it when I win. Because when you win, you win for your client and you can make a big difference in their life. And I have clients that have stayed in touch with me year after year, always so appreciative of our work together. And I love the one-on-one client contact because you do sort of follow them. They get back in touch with you 5 years later, 10 years later, and it's a great relationship that you've developed based on one particular episode in their life. So I also really like that there's a lot of strategizing to my day, figuring out what to do, and it may not be a classic path, a classic legal path, but figuring out the right result for a client isn't always the win or lose. It might be a psychological piece to it as well that requires you to think about maybe you don't want to be tied up in litigation for the next 3 or 4 years. Maybe we want to talk about alternative ways of resolving the claim. So it involves a lot of different aspects other than just the straight out legal approach, the psychology, the family dynamic, a lot of factors come into play, and it's interesting, and part of what, going back to the first question of what you enjoy every day and what your typical day may be like, it's not typical because each problem has its unique presentation.
The common theme that we're all stressing in terms of the most rewarding aspect of the job is helping people. That's what we all do in different ways, but we really do nothing other than help someone. Now, the nature of litigation is that if you're helping one person, you are trying to unhelp or not help or ex-help the other person. But in what I do, primarily with divorce and personal injury, nobody wants to come see me. When they come through my door for the first time, it's like walking in the emergency room. Someone's got something bad going on in their life. They wish they were somewhere else, but they have this bad thing, so they're going in to see me, and my job really is like the ER doctor to try to help them and make them better. So that's the most rewarding part, is taking someone who's got something really difficult going on in their life and being a major part of helping them turn that around in a real positive way. Do you want me to? So the next part is you want the least rewarding aspect of the job, and then we'll send it back this way?
Sure.
Okay. So.
Taking over my
Sorry. Kate, what comes next?
Well, I mean, if you wanted to talk about it, you can. I mean,
sure.
that's
happy
fine.
to. Thanks. The least rewarding aspect, I guess, goes back to the stress part. It is from and I know we'll talk about it later in terms of balancing personal life, family life, professional life. The stress is difficult, and there are times when vacations can be compromised, plans can be changed because we have emergencies that arise all the time. And unlike a lot of jobs where when it's 5 o'clock, regardless of what's going on in the world, it's 5 o'clock, you turn the lights off and out you go. I think probably in all of our jobs, there are times when we really feel like there's other things we need to get to, but we can't because we have a commitment to a client or someone within the system. So that stress can be difficult. But again, I think probably if we're on this panel, each of us would say, had I a chance to do it over again, even in light of the stress, I think all of us would say we would do it again. But just to talk about how important it is. Like any job, whatever careers you guys all go into, you want to try to talk to people like us and your parents about what really is involved in the job to understand both the pros and the cons. But I think clearly for us, the pros far outweigh the cons.
I agree that the stress is a major component, but one of the things that I like the least is that there are clients out there that you really just can't help. They may have so many difficult problems that just to provide the legal aspect isn't enough. A lot of times, and I'm thinking about mental health issues that can create such a situation for them that the best you can do is get them referred, but you're really not able to get them where they need to go because maybe they're unrealistic and they want something legally that makes no sense, and it's really the stem of that. The issue for them is more of a mental health issue than a legal issue. But it's always troubling that you can't get them where they need to go. They may not see that, and a referral isn't going to work, and you find in a very disappointing fashion that you're not really able to help them.
Sometimes you have to deal with, in the courthouse, in the criminal justice system, and they'll speak to this as well, I'm sure, is you deal with people at the margin. People who don't come from where you come from. People who, when you are telling them that a good result for you is you're going to pay a small fine on this particular motor vehicle infraction, and you say it's $35, and they look at you like it might as well be $3,500. People that come late to court or miss court because on that particular day they know if they don't get to their job, which pays $8.50 an hour, and they have 3 kids at home, they're going to be fired. That's the frustrating thing at times when you see folks that are exposed. They're part of the system, they're in the system, they've done something, but their circumstances are so different than ours on the panel and you folks in the audience. And as you go through life, you're going to encounter people who are really on the margin, and they have to make a decision each day, to keep pushing, to keep trying to help their kids that they're responsible for, and that can be disheartening at times. So always be conscious of that, no matter what you do, whether you're doing something in the law, whether you're doing something in health sciences or education, or whatever it may be. Be thankful for what you have.
So I hate to get even a little heavier than Attorney Stango, but our side of the table can be tough sometimes. So the worst part of my job is sometimes you cannot help a kid, and if there's drugs or mental health or gangs or whatever, they die. You know, I read about my clients in the paper that have died. I've been to funerals, and that's to me the worst part, but that keeps you going because maybe you can help a kid a little bit and that won't happen to them. Because they are on the margin, and their parents, many of them go to the adult court. It's just, unfortunately, a cycle. Another part is if I have a client that gets arrested, whether they've committed a crime or not, if they get arrested and it's a more serious crime, like what we'll call an A or B felony, more serious, they get transferred to the adult court. And they get to fight their case there, but they're still oftentimes sitting in adult prisons on bonds, and they're like 15, 16 years old. And I'm the one that has to tell them and their family what they're going to look at tomorrow. So those are my 2 most stressful parts of my job. But again, that's what keeps me going, I think, also.
Very similar to Attorney Elias. The hardest part is you can't save everybody. And with kids, I think sometimes it hits home more being a parent, that if this was your own child, you try to take on every case like they're your own child because you want ultimately what's best for them. And that's what I would say is the biggest difference between adult and juvenile. Another big thing is the red tape that we deal with, the financial restrictions that we now have, where we used to be able to provide certain programming for kids, drop-in centers. We would even, believe it or not, take kids out and get them school clothes, get them involved in the Y, just give them something positive to do, but because of so many financial constraints that we now have, we don't have that ability. So some of that has been taken away from us, so sometimes you almost feel helpless. And when you do leave at 5 o'clock, if you're able to leave at 5 o'clock, and just being able to switch over and say, okay, I have to leave that there, and knowing that sometimes there may be a 14-year-old that was just transferred up to the adult court, or we experienced the loss of a youngster this past summer in a terrible car accident, and we also had the driver. Attorney Elias and I both had the driver and the victim that passed away, and this boy was 13 years old, and just knowing, you go through it in your head. What could I have done different? How could I have saved him? How could I have even saved the driver, who now is facing 2 counts of manslaughter at age 16 in the adult court? So I would have to say not being able to save everybody is probably... Can we have a happy question now?
Yeah, sure. I was just going to switch around because the questions are in a specific order, but they don't have to be.
Well, you could give us another
We
question.
could. Yeah. Well, I was thinking, are there any obviously you have different sort of skills required to do your job. What would you say is like the most important skill that you need to do your job well?
Organization. I think organization, just because we fall under the Court Support Service Division, which is a division of the Judicial branch, and we have just documenting, because depending on your caseload, you have to document within a 24-hour time frame any communication you had involving this case. And if it doesn't show up in the computer system or in our case management informational system, it doesn't exist. Another thing along the social work line is we often have trainings about motivational interviewing, problem solving, because sometimes these kids that come through the door, they don't want to talk to me. I'm the probation officer. I'm supposed to be the bad guy. I'm the one that sometimes is asking for them to get detained or locked up. But on the flip side, trying to explain to them, okay, for a period of time, probably 6 to 9 months, we're going to have to work together. So really just getting them to be able to feel that they could trust you, because lots of these kids always are feeling abandoned, or there's no one that they can trust, or they have no stable figure in their life. So just really trying to enhance them to let them know that, hey, I'm actually going to work for you and with you, but also hold you accountable. So I would say that the interviewing and the organization are probably the two biggest.
Thank you.
I think for me, being a good negotiator, compromiser, problem solver. If I have a client who comes in and he or she wants a certain result, I have to talk to the prosecutor. I'll go with a package. So if the kid has a problem, I'll have services set up or some situation to have my prosecutor understand that it's not going to happen again. They don't have to worry about the community or the client. But it's also about compromise. If both sides walk away and they're both happy and yet not 100% happy, I think then it's a good compromise, because I still have to work for my client and do what my client wants, even though they're a child. They are still my boss. So I just think like seeing the whole picture from both sides, I think helps me. That's what Attorney Fletcher.
Interpersonal skills. When I was in Part A, I would have maybe 25 cases pending at any given time, and they would murders, sexual assaults, robberies, etc. Those are going to usually wind up in a trial, and that's a more intense preparation time beyond 5 o'clock. My current job, I'm running the lower court, and that is from 25 cases total to 150 cases per day, 5 days a week, and the next week it's another 150 cases per day for those 5 days a week. So it's less legal research and trial work and more dealing with people, dealing with public defenders, dealing with the private defense attorneys, the judges, and members of the public who, like I said, have been put in a position where they're now in the system and they're trying to navigate it themselves. So you need to be able to make the most of the hours that you have and get through the day, and then try and prepare for the next day at the same time. So I've had it both ways. When I was doing the trial work, it was a very different job, and now that I'm doing this, it's much more stressful with regard to managing your time and dealing with a multitude of folks every day.
People skills, social skills, I think they're imperative to the job that I have, because whether I'm dealing with a judge or a jury or a client or the adversary or the attorney on the other side, you're always dealing with the challenge of trying to bring people together. And if they don't have, your client, for example, doesn't have confidence in what you're telling them, then you're going to have a very difficult challenge ahead of you. So I think being able to speak to everybody, keeping in mind all the different psychological aspects that come to play, are probably the most important part of what I do.
I'm going to give 3 examples of skills that you guys are all working on now that I think all of a sudden I've got to spend the next 4 days in court and be up till midnight working on it. When a temporary restraining order comes in because one of my clients is hitting someone that he or she shouldn't be hitting. There are a lot of emergencies that come up, and you guys deal with Oh my gosh, how could they have scheduled me for APUSH, psych, and calculus tests on the same day? How am I going to do that? And I've got to go to my job, or I've got to go to the cross country. So learning how to juggle and learning how to prioritize is something that is crucial in any job, but certainly in the jobs like ours where things ebb and flow in crazy ways. Second thing is I think obvious is communication. The English that you guys do, and talking in classes, being comfortable speaking to people, learning how to find the proper word at the right time. Because as lawyers, we need to persuade people, whether we're writing briefs or arguing things in front of juries, cross-examining a witness, trying to find the right way. If I want the witness to admit something that he or she does not want to admit, my job is to get them there. And I'm using psychology, and I'm using English, and I'm using skills that you guys are developing now to get places like that. And a third thing, and I never figured I would say this, is math. I can't tell you what an advantage it is as a divorce lawyer to know how to do quick math in my head, because especially on big money cases where we're dealing with a lot of different financial issues, if I've got an opponent who really is not very skilled at math, I can think a couple of steps ahead, and that's a real advantage in this adversarial system where we're trying to win. You know, Chuck said one of the things that's nice about his job is he gets to always be looking to do the right thing. Well, in what we do on the civil side, it's not always the right thing. Sometimes it's what's right. It's what's right for our client, which may not be the right thing. But in trying to get that client what's right for him or her, using all of these skills, it's all things you guys are doing now.
Thank you. Going to a new sort of topic. Today, are there people entering into this career today? Is there an oversupply? Do you think that we should if we wanted to be lawyers, then we should have a backup plan, that we should look for something else? I mean,
I think there will always be needs for certain types of lawyers, but I do think it makes sense not just to look back at what people have been doing during our generation, but also to think about what are the types of jobs that cannot be outsourced. What are the types of jobs that can't be replaced by technology? So let me give you a couple of examples. Divorce. People should not have to have divorce lawyers. And if I could snap my finger and have everybody who is in emotional turmoil and have them become able to say, you know what, it makes no sense to spend $20,000, $30,000, $50,000 on lawyers fighting over $20,000, $30,000, or $50,000 worth of stuff. So that's the type. Divorce law, I wouldn't necessarily suggest people go into divorce law, because that's the kind of thing where the internet and the access to information can really, could potentially have divorce lawyers become like travel agents or other jobs where there's just not that market, but same thing. I think these guys will tell you there's probably always going to be a market for criminal law, but finding something like in any profession you're going to go into, finding a job where you need to have someone right here to perform the service right here. It can't be done by a research lawyer in India who can research Connecticut law just as well as I can, or by someone doing the mathematical calculations in China the same way that I can do them here. So I think like in any profession, you want to look for something where you're going to have a need here for those people.
One of the great things about the legal career is that you can go anywhere and do anything with it. So I went to undergraduate and then to law school, and I'm admitted to practice in 3 states. And originally I practiced in Manhattan and then came up to Connecticut. And one of the interesting things I do now is I travel to China and do business in China with some joint ventures. Gosh, that's a really wonderful thing to be able to have such diversity. Now, I have a more traditional legal job, but you can go into business, you can go into finance. There's so much that you can do with a legal degree aside from your traditional legal path. So I do think it offers a great deal of diversity, a great foundation for wherever you may choose to go with your career.
I'm not sure there's a job out there that the way that people that do the job, look at themselves, differs so greatly than the way the outside world looks at the job. People, as Shakespeare said, let's kill all the lawyers. People like to take shots at lawyers, and sometimes the stereotypes of lawyers can be overplayed. But I think it's a great profession. Law school is a wonderful way to develop skills that may not be used by you in a legal career. A lot of folks go to law school and wind up in business and wind up as entrepreneurs and do their own thing. But I think if you think that this is for you, if you think that you like to be able to be on your feet and argue points and you think you're very good at reading and writing clearly and understanding issues and being able to kind of put an argument together, law school and a legal career may be for you. But I used to proctor the bar exam, and for a while there we were turning out 800 lawyers every July and another 400 every February, and I didn't know where those folks were going. The economy went bad, and there was a lot of folks out there that were wondering what to do. Now I'm a lawyer and I have all of this legal expertise, and I have a law school debt to pay, and who wants to hire me? But as time goes on, everything is cyclical and the pendulum will swing back, and I think there's always going to be a need for us in some way, shape, or form.
So I have to agree. I hire lawyers for my office, and over the years, people that are applying for jobs are a little older, have years of career experience, versus a few years ago, it would be kids out of law school. So I think it's tough for kids that are graduating now from law school, because I'm going to hire a more experienced attorney over someone who doesn't have experience. However, the benefit for you guys, if you're interested in going to law school, is you'll be graduating years from now. And as Attorney Stango indicated, it's cyclical. So I think you have to follow your passion, not necessarily worry about if there's going to be a job at the end of that educational career for you, because you have to go to work every day and you spend a lot of hours doing your job. You better like it. So if you want to go into the legal fields, or if you want to have a law degree that you can use in other areas, you should go for it, and just worry about if there's a job out there or not, honestly, later, because you don't know what's going to happen a few years from now. And I'd rather not work. I'd rather be home and read books and join the gardening club or whatever. But I'm very lucky to do what I do for a living. I get paid to talk to kids. We're in court arguing. I explain it's kind of like being in a batting cage. You never know what's going to be thrown your way, but you have to be sharp, be on your feet, be articulate. And you're not going to lie, it's fun to win. It is. So.
That's good.
I guess I'm different in the sense that my degree is in social work. So I have my bachelor's in social work and my master's in social work. I knew growing up, the daughter of a lawyer who did wills and real estate, I didn't like that boring part of it. That's okay. I didn't like that boring part of it. But I knew I liked the law part of it. So I went into the field of social work, but I knew I couldn't do geriatrics, and I knew I couldn't do a lot of that other stuff. So actually, I researched when I went to college and found an internship in Rhode Island through Providence College. So I knew I wanted that criminal part of it, but didn't want to be the lawyer on that side. So.
Can I just ask you specifically? Obviously, we know that if you want to be a lawyer, you have to go to law school. But for your job, what type of education is required?
A bachelor's is required, but there are many different degrees. There's social work, sociology, psychology, criminal justice, human services, communications. So you have a wide variety of those degrees. What I tell most kids that come through and or people that are doing internships, your internship is probably one of your crucial things to really get involved in. My internship, I chose to stay apart in the summer and drove up to Rhode Island once a week in the summer. That's really where you're gaining that experience as to really see if this is something you really want to do. And I always tell the kids, don't be afraid if your first internship doesn't pan out or it's something you don't like. But I think at our court, we take on interns for the idea of just giving them some hands-on experience, because you are going to school, you are getting these degrees and having these loans to pay back and all that other stuff, but you want to make sure it's something you love to do. I mean, I want to still be able to say after 21 years, I love my job. I don't like the red tape and how things have changed a little bit, but I still like working with the kids. So you can have a wide variety.
Thank you. Just maybe a couple more questions before we turn it over to student questions. Do you think that the job that you've chosen is such a high-stress job that you still have time to balance between your work and your social life or your family? How do you manage to balance it all out?
I want to say when I was younger, you would take it home more because you didn't have as many responsibilities as home life. But as you become a parent and your kids are kind of dictating where you need to be and how you need to be there and what time, I think you learn to be able to say, I can't save everybody. Not to say that you don't take it home and you don't think about it, or we'll often text each other if we've had a bad day, like just checking up on you and making sure you're okay. But I think it's also to work in an environment where you guys, besides being colleagues, are friends and support systems for each other. I think that, at my job, we call it family time. The first probably half hour of the day, we all get together and kind of, whether you're complaining about your home life, your work life, whatever, you kind of get it all out there, and then you kind of start your day. So I would say just a support system, both at your job and with your peers, is really important.
So I think that's a very individual thing, and my experience is I've been a public defender my entire career. So I did the lower court, I did Part A, and I'm doing juvenile now. And I did Part A for, I don't know, like 9 months, and I had a baby, and I could not do both. But that's just me. So I could not stay up at night and prepare cases for trial and then be like this really awake mom when I needed to be. And it was, for me, too much stress. So I did go back to the GA, the lower court, where there's less trials. So you have to find a balance for yourself. My husband also traveled all the time. But there's always places you could that you can make it work for you. So I had to modify a bit. When I was in law school, I was going to do murder trials and all of that. And once I had a family, I knew that I could not be 100% successful or my most successful at both areas. So I modified, and I would have never guessed I would be doing what I'm doing now, because before I had kids, I didn't even really like kids very much, quite frankly. But now I do, and I'm around them all the time, and surprisingly, I really like it. So who knows, you never know. I'm sorry.
We work for the state of Connecticut, so whether we have a good week or a bad week, every other Thursday they pay us. Same thing with your teachers, whether they are on or off any given week, they're going to get paid. These folks to my left, if they don't do a great job, the phone rings less. So they're self-employed, and there's a difference there within the field of law. It's there's more security in terms of knowing that you're going to be okay in your job, although in this current state of budget cuts you never know, but it's a trade-off. You have a little bit less time at the office, potentially less zeros in the paycheck, but you do have time for everything else. Katie's my oldest. I have another one here who's a sophomore. Katie's mother is a saint walking of the earth. She does unbelievable things I don't even know she does to kind of keep our little household running. So without her, I think it'd be difficult for me to balance everything that I do. But at the end of the day, no matter what you do, whether it be law or anything else, that balance in your personal life and your work life is really something to constantly strive for.
I find that the balance has been very difficult. I have 3 children, and because this is my husband, we both have the same job. So every single week we have to try to figure out how we're going to balance kids getting where they need to go, us being maybe both in court and the kids aren't on the bus, and every single week, every single day is a challenge. And I do think it's something that we don't often consider at your age, how you're going to handle it later on in life, whatever your job choice would be, depending on what you might want with your situation, your social situation moving forward. Do you want a big family? You need to think about that a little bit as you choose your career, because it will have an impact. If you travel, for example, I told you that I traveled to China. I'm gone. Everything lands in Rick's lap, and he has to handle the kids. If I was doing that all the time, and I was traveling like that all the time, it would be a significant impact on the family. I think there are some things that are great for you guys going forward with regard to the balance, and that is, where's the cell phone? Cell phones, all the electronics, and the ability to do work. I do work when I'm in China. I also call my family and FaceTime with them when I'm in China. Things that you could never imagine that we can do at the beginning of our careers that we can do now because we have the technology. So I respond to clients over the weekend, and maybe I leave at 2 o'clock on a Thursday. The problem is the good and the bad to that. The bad to that is that you never escape work. It's always there. Wherever you're on vacation, guess what? The email came in and you need to respond to it. So there is never an escape to this job, but it allows me to escape to a 2 o'clock performance for Anna or whatever it might be. So there is that perk to it as well.
First of all, I can't let Chuck one-up me, so I've got to say my daughter's mother is also a saint walking up here.
Darn right, you better say that.
The type of work that we have, where it's not, it's not, the hours are not limited. I always say to Cathy that the divorce work is relentless. I get up at 5. I'm checking my emails by 5:15, and guaranteed just about every single day there were overnight emergencies. So I'm already working. When we're on vacation, when it's the weekends, whatever. I'm working all the time because people are emailing me with difficulties. So that's relentless. I've gotten used to it, and I prefer now actually to know about these things as they're happening, as opposed to coming in blithely on Monday morning saying, "Oh, this is what I'm going to do today," and have 50 phone calls there. I've already kind of dealt with it. But the other side of the private practice, as Cathy kind of emphasized, that's really beneficial is that unless the judge says you've got to be here at this particular time, we can do our own schedules. So one of the things that I do, I leave work early every day, and I become dad taxi man, and I drive the kids to ballet, and then I go back to the office, and I scramble to get some work done, and then bring them home from ballet, and then go back to the office and scramble to get some more work done. So one of the benefits, excuse me, of the private practice is being able to set our own schedules, getting used to that, and then having that kind of flexibility. But it's like, I've mentioned juggling already a couple of times. It's one of the things, each of you guys already knows how to do that much better than we did when we were your age. But you'll find that it's such an incredibly important skill, especially when you throw, family, that you really want to obviously do very well with your family. So when you throw family in with your career.
Thank you all very much. I'm going to turn it over to you guys. Does anybody have any questions for our panelists? Any ideas? Anybody has a question? I'll bring the microphone over to you.
You talked about bringing work home, like in the physical sense, but how much emotionally do you take home, and how do you deal with that? And do you learn to deal with that, like the more you work in your field, or is that kind of something that, like, it's just life experience and stuff like that?
I guess since the mic's here, I'll start it and then go down that way. I know for me, I've always been very conscious of a really interesting phenomenon. For years, I drove my kids to work in the morning, and I'd drive to work, and I'd be teaching them how to spell the, or how do you count to 4, and doing things like that. Yeah. But then Anna went to high school, and I didn't have to do that anymore. We moved on to harder topics. But being very conscious of being, sort of in daddy land, and the second I dropped them off, I was right in as a lawyer. And I was thinking about what case do I have to do, and how am I going to ask this question? How am I going to overcome this difficulty in this case? And then coming back at night, same thing. It's okay. It's such and such o'clock. I've got to get up right now and become dad. And there's it's that quick transition. But yeah, in the stuff we do, for me, I think you never really let it go. Doing something like divorce, I can't let my clients' problems ruin my own life, and one of the things it's done is it's given me a greater appreciation because all I see is bad relationships, and it's given me a greater relationship, or greater appreciation for what a good relationship is. I can tell you the 1,000 of ways that if you want to have a crappy marriage, come talk to me. I can really tell you how to do it, and that you just do the opposite. But there are times when it's hard to not let because the flip side of what we all do is help people. When you can't help someone, that is really difficult, and you do have to learn how to insulate yourself from that so you don't burn out.
I do not have a very good off switch, so I do find that I take things home and worry about things, and I guess what I find is making sure that you have outlets for that stress. I like to do yoga, I do Pilates, obviously your family life. But there are times where it's very, very stressful, and when you see a dilemma and you can't really figure out how to fix it, and to just walk in the house and think that you can turn the switch off, it doesn't work for me. I think it works better for you than it does for me. That's why I don't do divorce work. So it is something that you'd want to make sure that you could address as you move forward, and it is a field where there's a lot of angst with lawyers, and sometimes they face challenges personally because of that. So I do think it's something you'd want to consider yourself. Are you equipped for that? I do also think you become better at it. So the stress that I managed when I was working in Manhattan out of law school at the age of 23, that was different. I could not have managed what I'm managing now and do it without a blink of an eye, but it's always there.
Sometimes I try not to bring it home. Sometimes the worlds collide. I try to shield them from it. I was at a cast party with Katie at a pizza restaurant with her cast, the King and I, and all of a sudden I got called to a crime scene. About 25 minutes away by car, guy had come in and shot up an apartment. 2 people had been shot. They were clinging to life at the ER, and I was off, and it's after hours, and you're switching hats, and you come home the next morning, and it's time to go to church with your family. So I think we all do the best we can to be there for them when we're dad or mom, and then to obviously sometimes the job gets in the way, and sometimes worlds collide like that, but. It all works out in the end. I try to, I don't know, I'm interested to see, I'll ask her after this, how much she sees what I do during the day, whether it affects how I am at night. And it's just how it goes.
You also sleep in front of the TV. It's not
I sleep in front of the TV, but that's whether I'm, have a busy day or a slow day. That's just by virtue of being old.
Thank you. So comparing my adult court career to juvenile court, I did not take it home nearly as much in the adult court as in the juvenile court. You try not to take it home, you try not to get emotional, because you're going to be a better lawyer for your client if you're not emotionally invested. But there are a couple of kids that get under my skin, and it comes home with me. And I try not to fight it, because if you fight it, it's just going to get more stressful. You kind of accept it, embrace it, and you move on. And not to encourage alcohol, but a little glass of wine on occasion is not a horrible thing when you're 21.
Like Attorney Elias said, working with kids is difficult. I think because you want to always be that protector, and especially as you become a parent, that maternal side kicks in. Outlets are a key. You have to have something outside of work that is of your interest, and not just your kids and being the taxi cab driver, whether it's getting your nails done, going for a massage, shopping, going out with friends, exercising, anything like that, because you do need that time frame to at least unwind a little bit. But it doesn't go away. Unfortunately, over the weekend, you'll think about kids like, oh God, I hope he didn't take off this weekend. I hope he's okay. I hope, there wasn't any violence in the house. I hope, there was no new arrests. So you try really hard to do that switch, but we're humans, we're compassion, we have that urge to want to help people. That's why we're in this field, so it's really hard to just turn it off.
Thank you. Does anybody have any more questions before we start wrapping it up? Yeah, I'm not going to bring the mic over to you.
How do you prioritize family over social life and vice versa?
Family versus social life? Like, do you feel like you can't hang out with your friends as much or something? I feel like that's a thing.
Family is always a priority. I think the big thing is working together and having all the members of family pitch in. I have a role. My daughter's father has a role. Everyone has a role as to what they need to do. But then always explaining to your kids, like, listen, my daughter's now 13, so she's in that lovely teenage year, that, mom's going to go out for a little bit and it's going to be okay. Just letting her know that mom works to be able to give her what she needs to do in life, so mom needs a little bit of time as well.
So when my kids were younger, it was really hard, and I did not do a good job of it. But my children are now 18 and 20, and they're both away at school. And I have to say, I'm having fun again. And it's kind of like, there were years. And then I hang out with my husband, and I'm like, oh yeah, I really like him. I kind of forgot. Because when the kids were home, wait, you guys are going to enjoy this. When the kids were home, it was all about the children, right? Or the jobs.
As it should be.
But now that they're gone, like, we're going hiking, we'll just hang and talk. And thankfully, I still like my husband. If not, I might, go visit the guy at the end of the table here.
My family is everything. To me, work is work, and I do it. I enjoy it, and I've found a modicum of success in it. But I try and do things with both my daughters. I do theater. It's a hobby I've gotten into in my later years. And Katie does it. I've been in shows with her and her sister Lauren. I've directed them in shows. I coach Lauren's basketball teams here and there, which she just adores because I yell. But you try and be as much of a resource for them, as my father and mother told me when Katie was born. They're only with you for a short time, and then they're adults and they're on their own. So try and make the best of every day while you have them home. So that's what we try to do. That's what my wife Melissa and I try to do. And work is there, but it's going to be there when they're in college. So we'll have time for that later.
I think my social life has become intertwined with the kids' life. We are involved in the same way that Chuck is with the kids' activities, whether we participate because we're in the shows with them or we do family yoga because I want to do it. But we travel together. So the social life is really very intertwined with what we do with the kids. And I agree, they're there a very short time. Anna, really? You're going to go to college? That doesn't seem right. But I really find that part of my life to be really so enjoyable.
Yeah, I think everybody finds their way to balance family and their social life and their jobs. And one of the things we've all bemoaned to some extent the stress that comes with the professions that we've chosen. But I think we would also say that it's incredible that someone pays us to have such an exciting and challenging and interesting job, because as we're balancing family life and everything else, I just find it's really, really fun to be a lawyer. I mean, it's I sometimes can't believe how lucky I am that not only have a great wife and allegedly great children, but really it's the flip side of stress. If you say, well, I don't want to have stress, I don't want to have any difficulty balancing children, family, social life, and work, then there certainly are lots of jobs like that, and there certainly fine jobs like that. But probably with that type of consistency, you won't get